Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to hear me clearly today. Fear is real, anxiety is real, but they don't have to control your life. You see, fear is nothing more than false evidence appearing real. It shows up in our minds, it whispers in our ears, it paints pictures of failure before we even take the first step. And anxiety, that's fear rehearsed over and over again until it feels like a storm inside your chest. But today, I came to tell you, there's a way to break free. The secret isn't about pretending fear doesn't exist. The secret isn't about ignoring anxiety. The secret is about learning how to face it, how to redirect it, and how to turn that nervous energy into power. Because the truth is, you don't get rid of fear by running. You stop fear by standing still, looking it in the eye, and saying, "You will not control me anymore." You see, when you change how you think, you change how you feel. When you change how you feel, you change how you act. And when you change how you act, you change your life. Let me remind you, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward in spite of fear. You are stronger than you believe, braver than you know, and greater than the doubts in your head. If you want to stop fear and anxiety from running your life, then you have to decide today, no more excuses, no more waiting, no more giving my power away to fear. The secret is simple, but it isn't easy. Control your mind before your mind controls you. Feed your faith, starve your fear. Train your thoughts to focus on possibility, not limitation. When you do that, fear loses its grip and anxiety begins to fade. The power is already inside you. You just need to unlock it. Fear has a way of sneaking into your life dressed up like truth. It doesn't knock on the door politely, it barges in uninvited and fills your mind with what ifs. What if I fail? What if they laugh at me? What if I'm not good enough? These thoughts feel so real, so heavy, so believable that you begin to treat them as facts. But let me tell you something, fear is a master illusionist. It paints pictures in your imagination that don't even exist. It convinces you that a shadow is a monster, that a closed door is a dead end, when in reality, those shadows disappear the moment you shine the light of truth on them. Fear feeds off exaggeration. It magnifies the possible outcomes until they look bigger than life itself. It whispers, "Don't take that step, you'll fall." It says, "Don't try, you'll embarrass yourself." It shows you a giant mountain where only a small hill stands. And here's the trick, it doesn't need proof. Fear doesn't operate on logic. It doesn't bring you evidence of your failure. It feeds you lies about your future. And if you believe those lies long enough, you'll stop before you even start. That's why so many dreams never see the light of day. Not because people lack talent, not because opportunities never came, but because fear stopped them in their tracks. You see, fear isn't always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. It shows up in hesitation, in procrastination, in excuses. It disguises itself as wisdom. "I'll wait until I'm more prepared." It pretends to be your protector. "I just want to make sure the timing is right." But if you look deeper, you'll realize it's not wisdom talking, it's fear holding the microphone. Fear loves to hide behind logic, but what it really wants is control. It wants you to sit still while your life passes you by. It wants you to hand over your future in exchange for temporary comfort. The danger of fear isn't that it screams too loudly, it's that it convinces you to whisper too softly. It robs you of your voice, your confidence, your conviction. It makes you play small when you were built for greatness, and the worst part, most of the time what you fear never even happens. Studies show that the majority of the things we worry about never come true. Yet fear gets us to live as though they already have. It's like paying interest on a debt you don't even owe. Think about the times in your life when you were afraid of something, only to discover later it wasn't as bad as you thought. Maybe you were terrified of a job interview, but when you walked in, the people were friendly, and you did just fine. Maybe you were scared to speak in front of a crowd, and afterward you realized most people were rooting for you, not against you. That's the nature of fear. It's an expert at overpromising the pain and under-delivering the reality. It builds a mountain out of a molehill, and by the time you climb it, you realize it wasn't even that steep. Fear, my friends, is not your enemy, it's your teacher. It shows you the areas of your life where growth is waiting for you. It points out the very places where your breakthrough is hiding. But before you can turn fear into fuel, you have to strip it of its disguise. You have to look it in the face and say, "I know who you are. You are false evidence appearing real. You are not fact, you are fiction. You are not my reality. You are just my imagination running wild." When you expose fear for what it really is, you weaken its power over you. Anxiety is like a movie that never stops playing in your mind. But here's the catch. It's not a blockbuster hit. It's a horror film on repeat. You keep watching the same scene over and over, the mistakes you might make, the failure that could come, the rejection that may never even happen, and with every replay the scene gets darker, louder, and more convincing. That's why anxiety feels heavier than fear. And fear shows up once in a moment, but anxiety stretches that moment into a lifetime, forcing you to relive the danger that doesn't even exist. Think of it like this. Fear is the spark, but anxiety is the fire that spreads when you keep fanning it with your thoughts. It's your mind rehearsing the worst-case scenario as if it's a performance you've been cast in. You memorize every line of failure, every prop of disappointment, every scene of embarrassment, and by the time you step into reality, you've convinced yourself the script is already written. But the truth is, nothing has happened yet. Anxiety writes the story before life even gets the chance to unfold. The tricky part is anxiety can feel like preparation. You tell yourself, I'm just being cautious, I'm just thinking ahead. But what you're really doing is practicing panic. Instead of preparing for success, you're rehearsing defeat. Instead of imagining solutions, you're magnifying problems. That's why anxiety drains your energy before you even begin. You've already run the marathon in your mind, so by the time the real race starts, you're exhausted, shaky, and doubtful. Anxiety doesn't just live in your head. It shows up in your body. Your chest tightens, your heart races, your stomach knots, your hands sweat. Why? Because your mind has convinced your body that danger is real, even when it's not. The human brain can't tell the difference between imagined fear and actual danger. So when you rehearse failure in your mind, your body reacts as though it's already happening. That's why anxiety feels so overwhelming. It's not just a thought, it's a full body experience. And here's what makes anxiety so deceptive. It convinces you that by worrying, you're somehow preventing the outcome, as if the more you stress, the more control you have. But anxiety doesn't protect you, it paralyzes you. It keeps you in a cycle of overthinking and underliving. It's like rocking in a chair. You're moving a lot, but you're not going anywhere. Anxiety convinces you that forward motion is dangerous, so you sit rocking back and forth while your dreams stay stuck on pause. What's important to understand is that anxiety feeds on attention. The more you replay those negative images in your head, the stronger anxiety grows. It thrives on your focus, it multiplies with your imagination. But remember, just because you keep replaying something in your mind doesn't make it true. Anxiety may magnify fear, but it doesn't create reality. It only builds a prison inside your thoughts and tricks you into locking yourself in. Fear doesn't disappear because you hide from it. Fear doesn't vanish because you ignore it. In fact, the more you avoid it, the stronger it becomes. It's like a shadow. When you turn your back on it, it grows bigger and darker. But when you face it head on, you realize it's not as powerful as it appeared. The secret isn't running from fear. The secret is walking directly into it and proving to yourself that it cannot control you. Avoidance feels safe in the moment, but it steals your future. Every time you dodge fear, you strengthen its grip. You reinforce the lie that it's bigger than you. You convince your mind that the only way to survive is to retreat. But the truth is, avoidance is a slow surrender. It's giving fear permission to occupy territory in your life that doesn't belong to it. And the more territory you give away, the smaller your world becomes. Confrontation, on the other hand, is freedom. When you step toward what scares you, you reclaim your power. You send a message to your brain, to your body, to your spirit. I am in charge, not fear. You may feel the trembling, you may hear the doubt, but you keep moving anyway. And the moment you take that step, something shifts inside you. The giant that looked 10 feet tall suddenly shrinks because you realize it was only your perspective that made it seem so big. Think of a time when you finally faced something you had been avoiding for too long. Maybe it was a difficult conversation, maybe it was taking the stage, maybe it was trying something new. Leading up to it, the fear was enormous. It consumed your thoughts. It made you restless, it drained your energy. But the second you confronted it, you realized this isn't as bad as I thought. That is the power of confrontation. It transforms fear from a monster into a challenge, and challenges are meant to be conquered. Here's the truth: fear feeds on delay. The longer you wait, the heavier it feels. But the moment you act, fear begins to starve. You see, courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward despite fear. When you confront fear, you teach your nervous system that it can survive the storm. You retrain your mind to stop equating discomfort with danger. You give yourself evidence that fear's predictions are not reality. Confrontation doesn't mean being reckless. It means being intentional. It means breaking the habit of retreat and creating a new habit of facing forward. Every time you do it, your confidence grows, your anxiety weakens, and your resilience multiplies. The secret isn't to wish fear away. It's to walk straight into it until it no longer has power over you. Everything begins in the mind. Before you ever take a step, before you ever open your mouth, before you ever chase a dream, there's a thought. That thought becomes a seed from which everything else grows. If the seed is filled with doubt, the fruit will be hesitation. If the seed is filled with fear, the fruit will be anxiety. But if the seed is filled with faith, with possibility, with determination, then the fruit will be courage, action, and success. You cannot change your life without first changing your thoughts. Your emotions are not random, they are the direct result of the thoughts you entertain. Think about it. When you focus on failure, you feel heavy. When you replay rejection in your mind, you feel unworthy. But when you imagine victory, when you think about opportunities, when you picture yourself winning, you feel energized. The emotional storm you experience isn't caused by the outside world. It's caused by the thoughts you allow to run free inside your head. Change those thoughts and you shift the entire weather pattern of your emotions. And here's the beauty. Emotions drive actions. When you're filled with fear, you hesitate. When you're weighed down by worry, you procrastinate. But when you feel confident, you step forward. When you feel inspired, you take risks. Your actions are simply the mirror of your emotions, and your emotions are the mirror of your thoughts. That means if you want to change what you do, you don't start with your hands, you start with your head. Look around at your life right now. Everything you see is the harvest of the thoughts you've been planting for years. Your relationships, your career, your health, your confidence, they all trace back to the mindset you've allowed to shape them. That's why two people can be in the same situation, but one sees it as an obstacle and the other sees it as an opportunity. It's not the situation that makes the difference, it's the interpretation. It's the thought behind the lens. And let's be clear, changing your thoughts doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing to focus on what empowers you rather than what weakens you. It means asking what's possible instead of what could go wrong. It means directing your mental energy towards solutions rather than marinating in problems. When you master that shift, your emotions rise, your actions follow, and your results transform. This is why the mind is the most powerful battlefield. Win there, and you win everywhere. Lose there, and no matter how much effort you put in, your results will always fall short. The chain reaction is simple. Thoughts shape emotions, emotions shape actions, and actions shape destiny. That's why if you want to stop fear and anxiety from running your life, the first place to start isn't with your circumstances, it's with your thoughts. Too many people believe courage is the absence of fear. They think that strong people, successful people, brave people never feel afraid. But let me tell you the truth, everyone feels fear. The difference is not who feels it and who doesn't. The difference is who listens to it and who doesn't. Courage is not about eliminating fear. It's about refusing to let fear have the final word. It's looking fear in the eye and saying, I hear you, but you're not in charge today. A fear will always knock on your door when you're about to do something meaningful. It shows up right before the breakthrough, right before the opportunity, right before the growth. That's because fear knows you're stepping into a bigger version of yourself, and its job is to try to hold you back. But courage doesn't wait for fear to disappear. Courage says, yes, I'm scared, but I'm moving anyway. Yes, I feel the butterflies, but I'm stepping on stage anyway. Yes, I'm unsure, but I'm taking the leap anyway. Think of all the heroes we admire, all the people who change history, all the individuals who left their mark. None of them were fearless. They all felt it, shaking hands, racing hearts, sleepless nights, but they didn't let it stop them. They understood that courage is not a feeling, it's a choice. It's not about waiting until you feel ready, it's about moving when you don't. Because if you wait for the fear to vanish, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. And here's the truth, fear doesn't go away until you act. The moment you move, fear begins to shrink. Every step forward is a reminder to yourself that you are stronger than the voice of doubt inside your head. The act of moving forward in fear creates momentum, and momentum builds confidence. That's why the bravest people are not those who never feel afraid, but those who take action while fear still whispers, still screams, still lingers in the background. Courage is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Without it, you stay stuck on the side of safety, staring across at the life you could have lived. With it, you step out onto the bridge, even if your knees shake, even if your palms sweat. Courage carries you from comfort to calling, from hesitation to fulfillment, from ordinary to extraordinary. And every time you cross that bridge, the next one becomes a little easier to face. So when fear rises, and it will, you don't need to wait for it to vanish. You don't need to pretend it isn't there. You simply need to walk with it, move with it, press forward in spite of it. Because courage isn't about silence in the face of fear, it's about action in the presence of fear. And the more you practice it, the more you realize that fear was never as powerful as it seemed. Fear is like a wild animal. When you feed it, it grows stronger. Every time you give it attention, every time you replay its lies, every time you dwell on the what ifs, you're giving it another meal. And the more you feed it, the more it controls you. Fear doesn't need facts, it doesn't need proof, it only needs your focus, because whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on fear, it multiplies. If you focus on faith, that multiplies too. The choice is always in your hands. Think about this: fear thrives on your imagination. It loves to take a small thought and blow it up into a massive story. You think, what if I mess up? Fear replies, you'll embarrass yourself in front of everyone. You think, what if I fail? Fear replies, you'll lose everything. You think, what if I'm not ready? Fear replies, you'll never be ready. Fear eats every ounce of your mental energy, and the more you feed it with attention, the more powerful the story becomes. But remember, just because the story feels real doesn't mean it is real. Faith works the same way, but in the opposite direction. When you feed faith, it grows. When you choose to believe, I can handle this, your confidence rises. When you think, something good can come out of this, your energy shifts. Faith turns obstacles into opportunities, setbacks into lessons, failures into stepping stones. And here's the key: you can't feed both at the same time. You're either feeding fear with doubt or feeding faith with possibility. Every day, every moment, you're making a choice about which one gets stronger. Some people spend their entire lives feeding fear without even realizing it. They scroll through negativity, surround themselves with doubters, and replay every worst-case scenario in their heads. Then they wonder why they feel so small, so anxious, so paralyzed. It's because they've been feeding the wrong wolf. The good news: you can make a new choice today. You can start feeding faith instead, by focusing on gratitude, by remembering your strengths, by rehearsing the wins instead of the losses. When you feed faith, your vision expands. You start seeing doors instead of walls, opportunities instead of dead ends. You begin to shift your questions. Instead of asking, what if I fail? You ask, what if I win? Instead of wondering, what if this goes wrong? You wonder, what if this goes right? That one shift starves fear and empowers you to move forward with courage. Because your life always moves in the direction of your strongest focus. So the secret is simple: stop feeding fear and start feeding faith. Starve the doubts, starve the lies, starve the negative rehearsals. Instead, nourish your mind with possibility, with hope, with belief in yourself. Fear will always try to knock at the door, but if you stop feeding it, it gets weaker, smaller, quieter. And when faith grows stronger, it gives you the power to face anything that comes your way.